are back with the Buffalonian Podcast. I'm Joe Cali, and today I'm joined by a new face, a familiar face, but not the usual guy to my side, Evan Harrington of Buffalo Fanatics, Buffalo State Athletics, all of the above. How are you doing? It's your birthday today too, so happy birthday! Kicking it off big here. How are you feeling? You're 21 now.
Yes. Thank you for the happy birthday wish. Obviously, no better place to spend it, obviously, here with yourself, Joe Cali, on the Buffalonian Podcast, talking some Bills football. No better place to spend the 21st.
Yeah, and speaking of Bills football, things are underway. Officially, OTA started the other day. Yesterday was the team's first day of media availability, so we got to see a little bit of the behind the scenes action of a lot of the question marks, the wide receivers, the new guys, the draftees, and they did not disappoint. The press conferences were interesting. You heard Coach Sean McDermott yesterday. Pretty much anywhere, any news station, any radio station around, heard what he said. So he said it's a bunch of new faces. It's different. Like there's a lot of introductory stuff. Like, where's the bathroom? Where's the team? Like stuff like that. Where am I getting my lunch? Like that kind of thing. So, it definitely is. They retooled a lot in the draft. A lot of young guys came in. The defense is a lot younger than it was. So it's very interesting to see this state of the Bills as we move on from the old guard, if you will, because for so long it's felt like, as they like to call it, Black Wednesday, that day where every every veteran pretty much got purged off the team to save some cap space and go from there. But I mean, what are your thoughts just on this new team? Like, how are you feeling just base level before we get into some of the specifics here?
Well, yeah, I mean, outside of Buffalo, a lot of people would say the Buffalo Bills are in a rebuild state, right? You lose guys like Stephon Diggs. You lose a lot of the veterans in the back end, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Tre'Davious White. This is a new team. I don't want to say the word rebuild. I want to say the word retooling, because you still got guys like Sean McDermott in the building. You still got the quarterback, Josh Allen. You still got your identity. You still have the face of your franchise there. And obviously, we are bringing in a lot of new faces, whether it's guys like Keon Coleman. And you got players on the defensive side of the ball. Like, obviously, we brought in a guy like Rasul Douglas at the end of last year, but obviously this is his first full season with the Bills. You got a lot of new faces on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. And like you mentioned, they're asking questions. Where's the bathroom? Where's the best place to get food? What is there to do in Buffalo? I mean, these are new guys. Buffalo is getting a lot of new faces. And obviously the OTAs that is going on is a really good chance and an opportunity for them not only to get suited and cultured with the team, but to figure out Buffalo, right? To really get enshrined in the culture of Buffalo and really become a Buffalonian.
Yeah, I mean, no pun intended there, right? I don't know. Were you at all at the Micah Hyde softball game?
So I was unfortunately not able to make the Micah Hyde softball game, but I have been there before.
Yeah. So this season, let's just say some of the newer guys were there. Not all the rookies. Keon wasn't there. Joe Andreessen, linebacker out of UB and Lancaster, was there as well. So that was pretty cool. Andy Isabella was there. So Mac Hollins was there without shoes on. So it was interesting. He was running bases on the dirt barefoot,
Really?
which was kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, they all got a taste of what it is. I mean, the newer guys, and even you had a little bit of the old guard come back there with Jordan Poyer showing up, supporting the old guys, and you hear him say, you got the best quarterback in the league. Sorry, we couldn't get it done. Dolphins fans reading that are now a little infuriated. It made it to around the NFL Twitter. I thought it was going to kind of stay local because it was a local event, but yeah, that made it out pretty quick. Something big like that. But that, the young guys pretty much, if they were there, it was a way for them to get indoctrinated pretty early. But yeah, this is officially it. They
Yeah,
just look like this. It looks like they're having fun.
yeah,
Which
it's their Bills Mafia. I mean, obviously packed in Salem's Field. You have 16,000 plus people there
yeah.
chanting, hey, hey, obviously our chant. They're getting the first taste of what Bills fans are. Obviously, you see the videos, you see everything else about them jumping through tables, and that may be their first indication or idea of what Bills Mafia is like. But then you really get the actual experience with Bills Mafia coming out to the Micah Hyde charity softball event. They're supporting them.
Yeah, no, 100%. And let's move into OTAs now, because As I said, they started the other day. Media availability was yesterday. So things really kind of opened up a little bit. And you saw guys like Keon Coleman in practice. You saw Chase Claypool is one of the names that you really heard circulating along with Dalton Kincaid. And if you had Chase Claypool making, interesting plays and catching people's attention on your bingo card for the Buffalo Bills, I was not on that list. And when he got signed, I remember I was just like, really? This is what we're doing right now? I don't think that's the best move to be doing, but it ends up maybe looking better. Like that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I feel like my opinion's been turned a little bit to the point where hearing him speak, he wants to prove himself, right? Like that's the big thing. And it's just, I don't know. What are your thoughts? Because he had Ben Roethlisberger's rookie season, right? And then he's just been kind of playing musical chairs with quarterbacks ever since. Justin Fields, Kenny Pickett, Tua. Even last season, he ended up on the Dolphins. What are just general thoughts with Chase Claypool? I guess we'll kick it off with him because he's the most interesting to me, at least right now, out of the free agent pickups.
Yeah, obviously we remember Chase Claypool for what he was doing back in, what was it, 2020 when he got drafted?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, back in 2020 when he got drafted. I mean, he came out of the gate. He had that 4-touchdown game, end of the year with 9 touchdowns, about 800, 900 yards. The guy was electric. He can do anything on the field. He can go up, catch a jump ball. He can burn you deep. They had him running end arounds. He was a real gadget player at 6'4". I mean,
Yeah.
what was his nickname? What, Maple Megatron? Megatron?
I think, yeah, Mapletron or something, because
That's
he's
what
from Canada.
I was stumbling over the word for a second. Mapletron. They called him Mapletron. He was that good. He was getting the eyes and the intention his rookie season. And obviously year 2 happened, fell off a little bit, but still had a decent year. And then year 3, year 4, here we are. Chase Claypool finds his way to Buffalo. I like the signing. I really do. Do I think it's going to pay dividends and he's going to be the new wide receiver 1, the Stephon Diggs replacement? No.
Even though he's wearing number 14, it's not going to happen.
Yes, but coming in here, obviously, he's probably going to be battling with Justin Shorter for that, that 6th receiver spot here. And obviously, those two are big-bodied receivers. They're probably going to go at it for that last spot on this team here. But if he proves himself throughout camp, understands the playbook, gets along with Josh, fits well in the wide receiver room, I'm all for it. I mean, he's a talented player. I don't think the talent just left. Again, I think there was something that happened with him that I can't fully say because I don't know. That allowed that made him obviously fall down the path he is here now. But again, if he can find his way again, I think he could be a really beneficial player for the Bills.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. He's not going to be. I mean, the best case scenario is he's very serviceable and he's a starter, but not. He's of course not going to be wide receiver 1, but best case scenario would be he's a serviceable starter for this team, and that's what you want because you have Keon Coleman, you have a bunch of question marks. You don't really know what you're going to get, right? Like it's just kind of, it's a guessing game, and you're hoping for the best with all these guys. But the Bills really did. You took Gabe Davis, Stephon Diggs, your 2 best receivers on your team, then the big guys on your team, and you moved them along to Jacksonville and Houston. Now you have Khalil Shakir. Justin Shorter is a name that people are speaking about because we don't really know what's going to happen with him, right? You haven't seen any sample size from him.
He could remind me a lot of Isaiah Hodgins. In the fact, not their play style, but the mystery, right? Because Isaiah Hodgins for 2 years straight before he went over to the Giants was a mystery. He looked good in camp, had his moments in preseason, but he can never stay healthy. He wasn't on the field, didn't get the opportunity. Justin Shorter last year didn't get the opportunity. Maybe we see that this year. Maybe he could be one of those camp stories where you're just what could be. And he has the opportunity to obviously play with Josh Allen. Any wide receiver could elevate their game like that. But Justin Shorter, obviously talented, late round pick, phenomenal in college. Maybe he can do something crazy this OTAs and camp.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I mean, camp's going to be the big test with pads and everything like that. Right now, it's just they're basically just warming up out there, getting the rust out and getting the kinks out of it. But so there's Claypool, Shorter. I mean, Khalil Shakir is another name. He kind of exploded at the end of last season. The question was, is the Khalil Shakir experiment over around the middle of last season? And he proved on many occasions that it was not. over, not over at all. So listen, I think he's going to be a big thing too for this team. It's right now, again, like I said, you just have so many question marks. I don't know what to say because it's just, I think personally, Dalton Kincaid's going to be your number one target. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's going to be he's your Kelsey to Allen's Mahomes, right? Like, that's just what it's going to turn into. He's a pass catching machine. You saw it towards the end of last season, but you do have guys like Khalil Shakir who did stand out and step out, and you never know. I mean, the experiment was not over. He kept going. So, I mean, Khalil is basically your slot receiver. That's where I would put him. Where would you think right now he ends up? Do you think he could do anything else? He's shifty, gadgety, or something like that?
Well, I think Khalil Shakir is more than just a shifty, gadgety type of player. I don't think he is in the Isaiah McKenzie role or that Deontay Hardy role. Khalil Shakir is a receiver that should be playing a majority of the snaps come next season. He has proved himself in year 2 at the back half of last year, proving, hey, he may not be an alpha number 1 Justin Jefferson type of receiver, but when it comes to this team and when it comes to Josh Allen, he can go to number 10 and rely on him consistently and constantly. And that's what was going on at the back half of last year. When Stephon Diggs wasn't putting up Stephon Diggs numbers, who was he going to? He was going to Khalil Shakir. He also went to guys like Kincaid and Cook and Gabe Davis every other 3 games.
Yeah, I guess Gabe Davis, he was a blocker 90% of the time. So,
but Khalil Shakir proved that he should be on the field next year, and he can play outside, inside, and yes, he could even do the gadgety role once in a while. He could be that Isaiah McKenzie quote player for you here and there. But when it comes to the actual receiver aspect of things, I think Khalil Shakir could play mainly inside, but he has the talent and the ability to play outside because he is just that dynamic of a player. And again, those late round picks, you don't really notice it until it happens. And I think Khalil Shakir put people on notice at the back half of last year what he could do as a wide receiver in this league.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree. I think it's truthfully, it's really exciting. Like, that's kind of where I'm at mentally here. A lot of people are nervous. A lot of people are hopeful. I'm excited because we're at the point now where, yeah, OTAs, they're not the best gauge of what receivers or anybody can do. It's more, like I said, it's more or less a warm up, just knocking the rust off. But you're starting to finally see these guys. You see Coleman meshing with the team, kicking down those dummies, right? Like, he looks like a big goofball out there. And
dummy.
What'd you say?
Miyagi-Do to dummy.
Yeah, literally. And
karate.
yeah, I mean, we were talking before we started recording too. Josh Allen, the first thing he says about him is, "Oh, he's a talker," but like in a facetious, joking kind of way, nothing condescending or anything like that. But it's just, it seems like they're going to work well together. They have, Josh Allen's just a big kid too, truthfully, the way he is.
We'll get to him soon. I'm sure. MVS, look what he said about him. Just a right guy. Like, he's just a chill dude. I mean, the things that wide receivers or just players in general in the league say about Josh Allen, it's all the same. Josh Allen, just a regular guy, a little kid, like you mentioned, fun to be around. Like, that's the stuff you want to hear from these wide receivers. And I heard the hot take is Mahomes a diva now?
That's kind of what I was wondering too with that comment.
That's what I was hearing, because I'm like, you go from back-to-back Super Bowl champions. You had Aaron Rodgers, and we know Aaron Rodgers is
darkness retreat, the whole 9. You know what's going on there.
Next VP of America. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then you have Mahomes. Obviously, Mahomes, he's in the spotlight doing what he does. Back-to-back Super Bowl champion 3-time. Don't like uttering those words. But then you have MVS just come here and just, Josh.
He was on the roster, which both of them earned MVPs too. Aaron Rodgers back-to-back with him on the team.
So I saw a stat. It was the last 4 years. Aaron Rodgers was back-to-back MVP. Mahomes, he won MVP 2 years ago, right?
Yep.
So, because Lamar won it last year. So Mahomes was an MVP, Super Bowl champion, and the Super Bowl champion this year. So what I'm saying is now this year, Josh is either going to win the Super Bowl, an MVP, or both. I mean,
you know what? The sky's the limit. Let's shoot for both. Let's shoot for the moon. You know what I mean? Let's go.
Yeah. As Zach would say from Zach and Cody, let's shoot for 40.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think he's a great addition to the team. Yeah, that comment though, circling back to that, made me think the same thing. Like, oh, what are we talking about here? But I don't think it's anything too pointed. I think it's just, you're surprised that a guy like Josh Allen is really as down to earth as he is. He's just your average Joe, if you will. And it's a cool feeling because he doesn't put himself on a pedestal in any way. He's not above you, and he respects your play as a wide receiver. And MVS, listen, if you could play like he did in the playoffs last year, I'll be absolutely fine. If you're dropping passes in the end zone like he did in the regular season, we're gonna have an absolute problem. That's what's gonna happen.
Yeah, when it comes to the signing of MVS, people were skeptical at first, right? Because the drop history that he has. But coming here to Buffalo, you watch his film, the guy can stretch the field. MVS is a big time playoff performer, as we know. And now Josh has another player in his arsenal that he can use downfield. We know Josh loves to throw the football 40, 50, 60 yards downfield, and that is the type of player that MVS is. Yes, there is certain consequences that comes with adding a player like MVS, the occasional drop. But
Yeah.
this isn't a knock towards 13, but we were dealing that once in a while with Gabe Davis.
And even Stephon Diggs, you were dealing with that.
Yes. And Stephon Diggs this past year as well. But the thing with MVS is, again, you're getting a guy that's going to be able to stretch the field, and it's adding a new element to your wide receiver room. Being 6'4", Josh has never had a player that he could go to on 50-50 balls per se consistently outside of the tight ends in Stephon Diggs, but that can stretch the field at 6'4", and he's a burner, man. MVS is a burner. That's the one thing I don't think that gets stated about him enough is his ability to win downfield. And once again, it's just another tool for Josh, but this wide receiver room is really big, Joe. Really big. And
yeah, and
we were talking about it. We were talking about it. It's the biggest one Josh ever had.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the biggest takeaway is like you have the depth, you have the group of wide receivers, right? They're just unproven. A lot of them are unproven. MVS is proven in big moments. He's come through in the postseason. Chase Claypool has remnants of being proven, but that's barely a thing anymore, right? After multiple tenures on different teams where just nothing happened. And then, you have Khalil Shakir, who had a great second half of last year, but up until then, it wasn't anything special. What'd you say?
Matt Collins.
Yeah, the barefooted guy. Yeah.
He had a very solid season last year with Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Like he put up decent numbers, wasn't anything astronomical to sign a 3-year deal and be a wide receiver one on this team, but depth-wise, he proved that he could play on this team.
Yeah, and listen, I'm all for. He seems to be an absolute spirit animal of the Buffalo Bills, so I'm all for that. And they seem to all fit the culture really well. Even all the draft picks. I mean, even just talking about him, right? Like Carter, like everyone they drafted, like 3-year, 4-year captains. You know what I mean? like they are clearly going for the culture that they've fostered there, and I think that's circling back to Claypool. I think that's what's gonna work, right? Because Claypool has had he's been called a diva-ish of sorts, right? Not Stephon Diggs type, but just lazy, right? Like that's a word that's floated around with Chase Claypool, and you're kind of thinking like, oh, why did we pick this guy up? As soon as I saw it, I was like, I don't like this. I don't like Chase Claypool. I didn't want him on the Bills. And now after letting it marinate for a few days, hearing him speak, hearing McDermott speak, it just seems like a better and better fit. And hopefully he can put it together. But yeah, him in this wide receiver room, everyone in this wide receiver room, they're all animals. They're all like 6 foot something, minus Khalil Shakir, right?
Samuel.
And Samuel. And let's not forget about Curtis Samuel either.
And that's the one thing. When it comes to this wide receiver room, I mean, I might throw the take out there that this may be the deepest wide receiver room the Bills have had since 2021. In my opinion, the 2021 wide receiver room was Stephon Diggs, Emmanuel Sanders, Cole Beasley, and Gabe Davis. And then obviously you got to throw in Dawson Knox, and even Devin Singletary was good in his own right out of the backfield.
Yeah.
That was the best wide receiver core Josh has ever had. In my opinion, the Bills have had in the last 25 years. You can make a case for it, in my opinion. That was a very good wide receiver room. But when it comes to one, I think this may be the deepest that they've had since 2021. Now, when it comes to the wide receiver one position, yes, you don't have your Stephon Diggs. But when you take a look at all the bodies in this room, the Khalil Shakirs, the Keon Colemans, the Curtis Samuels, the Mac Hollins, like the MVS, like MVS was a wide receiver 2 in Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
What you want about him, but he may be a 3 or 4 here. I mean, this is a deep, dynamic, and very diverse wide receiver room. Every guy here in this room brings something different to the table, which is I think is something that Buffalo needed.
Yeah, 100%. And listen, after last year's wide receivers, where I felt like neither of them were really firing on any cylinders. So you had your tight ends, and even let's not forget about Dawson Knox either this coming season. Okay. He had wrist surgery. He got his wrist injury figured out. He might return back to what he was the year before, which was a big, slot tight end. And he would make the big catches and big plays in the right moments. And it's just, I'm a big Dawson Knox fan. So, I mean, I'll support him, but I truthfully,
so is T-Mark. I mean, he's every billboard in Buffalo. But the thing with Dawson Knox is I think a lot of people forget that guy was he posted double-digit touchdowns just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
A very good player that just gets swept under the rug by Bills fans. And I don't understand it. Obviously, Dalton Kincaid is going to overtake him as the tight end 1 on this team. But the Bills are going to have 2 tight ends next year that they can run and stretch the field with. They're going to
tight end attack. That's all you got to do. Tight end attack now.
I like that. 2 tight end sets. 12 personnel is going to be the main stable point, I think, for the Bills outside of 11. And again, you got to count Kincaid and you got to count Knox in this wide receiver room because they're going to be used like that this upcoming season.
Yeah, and I mean, you also, everyone's forgetting Joe Brady is finally able to use his own playbook and not the skeleton of a Ken Dorsey offense that he didn't want to change in the middle of the season, right? So it's just, I think you're going to see a huge improvement and more utilization out of the wide receivers, and also just you're going to see more. I think he's going to get some more usage out of the running backs too. You saw James Cook's usage tick up, right? But you have James Cook now, and hopefully the hands get a little better, and you really could use him in the passing game. So that's another receiver pretty much you can add, right? So it's just, I think Joe Brady's offense is only going to help these receivers, help these guys get up and running and go. So I can't wait. I really am excited. Training camp's going to be interesting when you can really start to see these plays kind of develop and see what the style of offense is going to be.
Yeah, obviously, like you mentioned, training camp's just right around the corner. In the months, it's going to come here sooner rather than later. And OTAs, like we mentioned, obviously they don't have the pads on. They're not going through consistent 11-on-11 drills. But the thing is, they're getting comfortable with one another. They're building that chemistry. They're getting continuity in the building. That's the big thing. They're getting everything they need to get done now before training camp comes around. And then when that does come around, they're going to be more loose. They're going to be more comfortable. And then they can start installing the plays actually in live action more. And that will be the big thing. And really, I am more excited for training camp this year than I have been in a long time. I think the last 2 years, there were things to be excited about, even the last 3 years. But this is a very exciting training camp, I think, because we talked about it earlier in the show. This is a different team. This really is a different team. This is the first time in really 5 years that there's a lot of new faces that not only guys like Josh Allen, Sean McDermott, Brandon Beane, and the rest of the team needs to figure out and get to know, but us as fans, us as commentators of the team, us as people who watch the Buffalo Bills every single day and install content into ourselves. We need to figure out this team. We're going to get to know these guys very, very soon here, and OTAs and camp will allow us to do that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, just a quick little segue in NFL talk here before we start wrapping things up. Did you see what was tweeted about the 18 weeks or 18 game season?
No, how recent was it?
No, it was like yesterday. I think it was Joe Burrow. I think he was saying they should follow the NHL style of things. Have each team have a bye week scheduled, but then have every team have a bye 1 week together and do like the Pro Bowl, like the NHL All-Star game.
In the middle
in the middle of the year, yeah. What do you think about that? I had to I mean, this could count as the hot take segment we normally do at the end, because it's definitely interesting. That's for sure.
You know what? I don't want to agree with a conference rival. Yeah, I may have to. I actually really like the idea there by Joe Burrow, because not
I
only
think
does
it
it
was by Burrow. I'm almost positive it was. I thought I saw it on Twitter.
Burrow, just whoever the anonymous source it was.
Yeah.
The reason I agree with it, because I'm more intrigued in the NBA All-Star game, the NHL All-Star game, etc., when it's in the middle of the year. You get to have your stars there. You get to have your Allens, your Mahomes, your Burrows, your Lamars. On the NFC side, you get to have your Hurts, your Dak, your etc. Like, you get to have all the players that you can have there, because it's the middle of the year. You don't need to have, guys taking off because they're on vacation, or they're playing in the Super Bowl or the conference championship.
Or they're golfing.
Josh. Good old Josh. But I think it instills more, intrigueness to the event itself. And it's in the middle of the year. I think it's a perfect time for it. I actually agree with Joe Burrow there.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm gonna have to check after the show if it actually was Joe Burrow or not. I'm almost positive it was, because he's been the most vocal about the 18 game schedule, saying he wanted 2 bye weeks and stuff like that. If you're gonna do that and cut the preseason games down.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of cutting preseason. I'm not a fan. No, only because when it comes down to the thick of things, that really determines a lot of back end guys on the rosters, careers. Like, yes, for entertainment wise, preseason isn't the biggest thing. It doesn't need to be broadcasted to the masses, and a lot of people don't care about certain preseason games. But when it comes down to the thick of things, I like the preseason games, because that determines, like, the final 52, 53 guys on the roster, guys making practice squad. They need those games. Those games are for them. I think 3 is a good balance right now. I don't want to go down to 2. I think 3 is fine. I think stick with it. If you want to do 21 weeks of games with preseason, Pro Bowl bye weeks, 18 game regular season, sure. But I don't want to get rid of the preseason.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. It gives you that extra game, gives you a lot of time to really figure it out. Because you can't just go 2 games blind and be able to determine your 53 man. I feel like that's just a lot. So, and especially, I mean, look at a team like the Bills, for example. Look at the amount of wide receivers they have. Look at the amount of defensive backs they have. Like, you're gonna have to test these guys out, and it can't just be in 2 games in training camp. Like, that third game, believe it or not, I think does make a bigger difference than most people realize. But yeah, I'm all for the Pro Bowl week, All-Star week, whatever you want to call it. I think that the NHL does that well. It's nice to kind of have a break, like in the middle of the season, towards the end maybe. But you're right, it would stop people from being absent and stuff. Everyone would be able to go. If you're actually, I feel like it would kind of return the Pro Bowl to what it was. Like, you were selected to a Pro Bowl, it actually meant something, right?
Yeah.
Like, you didn't just decline it because you were going to golf. You didn't just decline it because you were, you didn't make the Super Bowl or whatever, and you just don't feel like going. Like, there are certain, like, people have done that too.
You know what's perfect about it now? The Pro Bowl isn't as intense or as difficult to play in. Like, it's not an actual football game anymore. It's
It's not like, I forget that Bills punter that got nailed. I'm trying to remember who it was. Yeah, Brian Moorman getting nailed. It's not that anymore. It's flag football. So
there isn't Brian Moorman getting absolutely obliterated on the field. But now you have the ability to do more skill games, interaction with fans. You got the flag football game itself. The NFL,
the skills competition, all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the NFL can take advantage of it. And there may be a couple players that opt out and don't want to play in it. Sure, that's fine. But middle of the season, I think that gets the most eyeballs on the product.
Yeah. I actually, as you know, we've done the hot take segments with you, both Dom and I. Probably should have made a note of that. Dom is on vacation. I completely forgot to mention that at the beginning. That's why
if anyone thought I was replacing Dom full time, no. I was just filling in for him today.
Yes, Dom is on vacation, enjoying a sunny paradise somewhere. It looks like, we've had 80 and sunny the past couple of days, and it looks like the clouds are coming in, and that thunderstorm might be rolling around. We don't know at the time we're recording. So as you know, Dom and I like to do a hot take towards the end of the show. I'm kind of I might be in the minority or I'm in the majority. I have no idea. As you know, the last one I did was Angel Hernandez being good for the watchability of baseball. So that one, surprisingly, I think Dom was against, but I think you were kind of
No,
in the middle. Like
I
you could
agree with
see
it.
it.
Hey,
Yeah.
I'm a huge baseball fan compared to, the diehards, but it gets my eyes on the product.
Yeah. Yeah. So that one's one in itself. This one, though, the NFL, they play their international games. They're prospecting more location for said international games. Australia, Italy, blah, blah, blah. I despise the international games. Like I get it. There are fans elsewhere and things along those lines. It puts a dampener on the schedule, I feel like, right? The time changes, everything like that. Like it becomes too much to a point where it's like, why? Why? This never was happening before. There was one game in London, whatever. Like that's fine because the Jags were always the team in London and just rotated their opponent. But now, like, you know, the Rams have the biggest following in Australia, say, right? Now we're going to put the Rams in Australia every year at one game. Like, I'm not a fan of that at all. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the international games and stuff like that? And then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, obviously the international games have been very impactful and been boosting in the sense for the business in the NFL. I don't think there's
Yeah.
any way you can deny that part of things. But I will say when it comes to actually watching football games, it's sometimes hard for me to wake up on 9:30 in the morning on a Sunday to even watch the London games. Like when the Bills played this past season in London against the Jaguars. Like, yeah, I mean, obviously I woke up at 8 o'clock, got up, made breakfast with the pops, and was watching the Bills play the Jaguars. But it is hard, and like you mentioned, it puts a damp on the schedule. It does make things a little harder as viewing wise. But the one thing I will say is, I'm always about growing. I'm always about things getting bigger if the possibility is there, and the NFL is doing that. And
Hmm.
I think it is great for the game, and it's just great for business. And I think it allows the NFL to be different because these sports leagues like the NHL, the NBA, the MLB, they'll do some traveling. Like they'll go, even the WWE, they'll go to different countries and different places in the world, and they'll do things, but they can't do it like the NFL. They can't
Yeah.
do it. So the NFL can take two teams, they can stick them in another country, and
Still
it's
sell out a stadium.
Bowl. It's like the Super Bowl over there for them. So
Hmm.
that's why I love it because it's different, it's new, it's something that that other people can enjoy. Like I really am all about people enjoying things that I enjoy or stuff like that. And
Yeah.
people get to do that in other countries because the NFL goes there.
Yeah. No, I got you. We'll have to pick Dom's brain next when
Yeah.
he's back and see how he feels about the international games. But again, he's on vacation. He'll be back next week. Thank you to Evan for coming on with me. Much appreciated. We got to talk about some Bills OTAs, some breaking Bills news. Hasn't been some in a while. It's just kind of been
Yeah.
quiet after the season, and everyone's been on their off-season trips and stuff like that. So it'll be good to get back into training camp and everything along those lines. And again, appreciate you coming on. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Buffalonian Podcast. I'm Joe Cali. Today I was joined by Evan Harrington. Plug whatever you got going on before we close out here, and then you know how we ended. We ended with a Go Bills.
Yes. Yeah, you can go follow me on Instagram at Evan Harrington _63. And then I have a new media page that I started up. I guess I'll start plugging that on anything I
Yeah.
do. It's Evan Harrington Sports Media. It's just Evan Harrington Sports Media. Anything I'm doing, you can follow that over there. But yeah, that's all I got.
All right, sounds good. That's anything Evan's doing is worth checking out. So go give it a look at, and you'll see him in the next couple of weeks probably on another edition of the Buffalonian Podcast. But Evan, before we end it, how do we end it?
Go Bills.
Go Bills.